Welcome to Stamp Your Passport, where you can discover the best stories from all around the world. Fasten your seatbelts and join us. Presented by World Studios for World of the Right Review.
Hello, everybody. I'm Annie with World of the Right Review, and today we are stamping our passport right here in the United States, in California, Central Coast of California, where they inspire writers of all genres, and they have lots of artists. It's just a wonderful, wonderful place. So Diana got all of these authors together for us to discuss their different books. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Karen Tai Yamashita. Did I say it right? No,
Tay.
Mashita. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, Karen. I'm sorry. And Alka Joshi.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And Diana White Paul, thank you so much for getting everybody together for us. And I apologize, Karen, for not saying the Tay right. Okay, so we're going to start with Diana. Diana, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm enjoying both these authors so much in their books. It's been a lot of fun getting to know them through their writings.
That's wonderful. So thank you, Alka. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, this is just a pleasure. It's always fun to talk about how wonderful it is to live in this area. I mean, this is so conducive to writing, this kind of very quiet and green environment that we're in.
It's, when I look it up on Google, you just feel the energy of art and creativity.
Oh,
it just feels wonderful. So I can see how all of your books have been so wonderful. So thank you for sharing today with us. I really appreciate it. And Karen, who I'm also very excited to meet. I hadn't heard of your books yet, so I'm very excited to meet you and get to know your books. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for hosting. And I'm really honored to be here with Diane and Alka.
Thank you. And like a pie. And Karen's here in a turtleneck. Right. So like the cool thing about the weird thing about California is like a lot of us don't realize like the different areas have different temperatures and everything. And Central California is one of those places that is very temperamental in temperature. So I think that's an interesting part of that area. But this is the map. So I'll let Diana talk about that.
Well, sometimes people don't know what Carmel and Pacific Grove and Santa Cruz are. And it's such a vibrant area. I mean, we do get a lot of visitors. So I put it on the map. We're kind of close to San Jose. If you wanted to get to a quasi-city with some theater and art, you would go there. Santa Cruz is very rich for its own literary and art festivals, and they have Shakespeare. At least they used to have Shakespeare outside before the lockdown. And Pacific Grove is just the quaintest of the coastal communities, and it's just really vibrant for a lot of authors. So that's why I put it on the map. You can see how close we are to San Jose, not as close to San Francisco, and quite a ways from Los Angeles.
I love it. It's like at the elbow.
Yeah,
right.
At the elbow, and we're going to show some beautiful photographs from that area. Okay, so who would like to start talking about their books, or what started them writing first?
I guess I'll go first because Alka nominated me.
All right. So Diana, let's start with like why you write. I think we want to start there first because I want to say I reviewed your book in 2015. I've been stalking you ever since because I loved your book so much. I've been stalking you until another part 2 comes out.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I quote you sometimes, Alka, because you said when you were reading about the matriarch of a narcissistic mother, at one point you had to throw the book across the room, but then you wanted to know what happened. So
I did.
So
I did.
It's that kind of intense family saga. The main character, Jules Foster, is based at Stanford. That's right near San Jose. It's in Palo Alto. And she's a professor of psychology. And the chairman of the department is somewhat of a sexual predator. And he promises her tenure just within the boundaries of his office, so nobody else knows. And then he collapses and dies in his office. And so that's turmoil for Jules and for her family and what she's going to do. She has aging parents. She has a beautiful daughter who's ready to go to college and a loving husband. So everything has been just perfect for her until this happens. And now she has to decide with limited funds whether to help her parents, who have not been the kind of parents she would have liked, or her daughter, who is the sunshine in her life. And that's the drama in the story. So it takes place in Palo Alto, partly in Carmel, partly in Ohio, to get the Midwestern flavor of what the 50s were like. And then it has a surprising ending.
Yes, it does.
So what inspires me to write, I think everybody has a story to tell. I mean, I love hearing other people's stories just around the dinner table. When it comes to family and talking about your parents or talking about your siblings, everybody's ears always perk up. And I always, in fact, sometimes I recorded some of my friends' stories about, especially their mothers.
Do they know?
Yes, I make sure they all know. But Annie Lamott used to say, if you weren't nice, you should have been nicer if you didn't want to be in my story. And Steve,
amen. Amen. I love that quote that she has. Yes, you're right. Or she was
anyway,
right. Yes.
I just loved storytelling, listening to stories, and I'd always written. I've written since I was a small child, and I was the editor of the high school newspaper, and I've always been a scribbler. So what inspires me to write? It's just stories. People are fascinating. I love listening to their lives, and everyone has a story to tell.
Now I know why you let me yammer on when we're on the phone. All right. Well, wonderful. So we'll come back to why Carmel and the area is conducive to your story and your writing and everything. I'd like to go over to Alka. So I know your stories are based in India, which are just, they're so vibrant and beautiful. And, the henna artist, about the wonderful daughter that had to get away, got away and took care of herself. And now the secret keeper. I think I haven't read this one. Now I think it's about the son of the henna artist.
It's actually her ward. Let's put it that way, because she doesn't.
Ward.
Yeah. Okay. Malik is a street child whom she had adopted and taken care of since he was about 5 years old. And in the henna artist, he is only about 8 years old. He's been working with her for several years, but he has a benefactor who allows him to get this boarding school education up in the foothills of the Himalayas. So in The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, he is suddenly 20 years old. We have advanced the story 12 years. And now I was interested in exploring, now that he has gone from street child to well-educated, young, polished man, how has he changed from the inside? You can look really different from the outside, but if you haven't changed from the inside, or if there's been a major difference in your internal thoughts and your internal actions, then, I want to know about it. That's what's interesting to me in writing about these characters. So that is what's happening in The Secret Keeper. And, I wanted to say regarding the first question that you were asking, in 1980, 88, or what was it? It must have been 1998. 1998, my husband and I were driving up to the Sun Valley Writers Conference. And my husband is a writer. He went to Stanford specifically in that master's program, for writing. And so he had been invited to the conference there to present his work, and he was. And as we were driving up, we took a road trip, and so we were driving. I thought, oh, I was just entertaining him with stories of growing up in India. And he said, those are really interesting stories. You should write those down. And it was the first time that I'd ever thought that anything in my upbringing would be interesting enough for somebody outside of it. So for the rest of the trip, I had this notebook and I started writing things down. And then I would read sections aloud to him and he would say, hey, that's really good. Keep going. And so I would not be a writer today if it hadn't been for my husband all those years ago saying, I think you have something and I think you need to tell people about it. So that's what got me writing stories.
That's amazing. And he was going to a writers conference.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
That's very interesting. And it's one, husbands aren't always so supportive like that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that, one thing that helps, and I know Karen is also married to a creative type, but when you're married to a creative type, we each understand the need for each of us to create. We understand what that is. We understand what it is to need the alone time to think about these characters, to be in our own worlds, and to not put pressures on each other like, oh, you've got to do this because blah, 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 right? So, I think, is that true in your case also, Karen?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, my husband's an artist. He was an architect, and he's also an artist, and he's constantly. Well, you can see behind me, he's constantly producing, and that's our life together.
Yeah.
Really, there's a lot of synergy and communication. Although creating art and writing, they're two different kinds of creative work. Yeah.
What do you think is the difference, Karen?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Good question.
Well, for Ronaldo, as you can see there, he's creating locations of color and abstractions. And I'm trying to create not abstractions, but narratives which you can understand. So if you look at his work, you have to interpret it yourself, right? But it's not that you don't interpret the stories and that there's not more, for instance, behind all of your stories to delve into. But, with fiction, you are telling a story and it is linear and you want the viewer to understand what you're trying to convey. And for my husband, I think it's a little more of a, it's not something he can explain. He can't narrate what he's doing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's funny. I interviewed an author yesterday and I made him realize something about his book that he didn't even realize. So sometimes even an author doesn't realize what they're doing.
No, isn't this true?
So true.
And I'm sure, Diana and Karen, you've had it happen to you too. A reader will share an insight that they had about your work that you didn't even have. And you're like, hey, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't even know I was doing that or creating that or inserting that kind of trait into this character, but they picked up on it, which I think is really telling of readers who read very thoughtfully and are open to your characters in ways that you weren't even open to your characters.
Well, absolutely. I think reading a book is kind of like looking into a mirror. Sometimes you're bringing so much into that story that you kind of create a story that may be somewhat different from what the author's creation was. And the same thing holds for visual storytelling in art or in movies too. You bring something in there. So I'm always surprised too, Alka, especially book clubs, when they say, oh, this is what I think happens in the end. And some of them really blow me.
Well, I'm retired, but I was in the literature department at UC Santa Cruz. And so I was a writer amongst literary critics. And,
Ooh.
Yeah. So you know what that is like. And so when I first got there 20 years ago, the word on around my department was that the author is dead.
Wow. Why in the world would they have thought that?
Well, that was what they were saying, of course, because, of course, the text alone could speak. So that's a theoretical idea about what you're writing, right? That the text speaks by alone, and it doesn't need you, nor your biography, nor your past to know why you put any of that on the page. So,
well, you know, I don't agree. I don't agree either. You know, that's why we interview authors.
No,
you know,
those of us who write don't agree.
You know, I used to, you know, I started by interviewing or book reviewing with Elle magazine. And then when they stopped printing, I had to go to my own blog. And the very first thing I did was start interviewing authors. And Diana was one of those authors. I reviewed the book and I interviewed the authors because I felt I learned more about their book by knowing more about them. Yes. You know, now I feel like you know more about Alka's books because you know where her first little sprout was, right? From wanting to write. When you know that they really did live in India. Yeah. You know, it's not something they Googled. You know, you get this sense of, wow, it was very real. Yeah. Like you get these different fires inside of you when you learn more about the authors. I don't believe it. You know, I believe the author's life is a huge gift to backing their work. You know, whether it's what they wrote about or what they didn't write about, but still, it's in there. It's between the words. It's between the letters. Yeah, you know, it's there.
Yeah. You can only write from your own perspective and experience. Even though you write a lot of different characters, it's still coming from your mind, you know. So it's very much your voice. And to say the author is dead, even if the author is dead, he or she, you read the book and then years later you go and you read it again. Reading that book is different because of who you are. And the social times, too, changes what that book is. It's a living document.
Yes. And we still quote dead authors.
Yeah. You're reading Tom Sawyer now versus if you had read it 100 years ago. Completely different creation.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Sometimes the author is dead, but we're still talking about him.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, true. Their legacy, right? Their legacy.
It is. Wow. It is very interesting to me how you can read a book at different times in your life and the book tells you a different story.
Yeah.
Because you have evolved differently, you know, and now it's telling you a different story. So books are always a new gift to people. So
yeah. And, you know, Annie, it's the same as when we write. I don't think that I'm writing the same way now and perceiving things the same way as I would have at 20 or 30 or 40. Wow. Right. So in my 60s, I feel like I have much more experience. I have experience with love and loss and grief that I wouldn't have had at 20 as much. And so I think my work is richer now than it could have been way back then.
That's amazing. You know, that's amazing. It's funny. Like, I feel like the colors of the covers of your books speak of the richness in your books because everybody reviews your books speak of that. Like how rich your books are. And I think that the colors of your books are very important to that. And I just had to throw that out there. I've always wanted to tell you that, Alka.
Well, you know how, so Karen's husband is an architect and an artist. One of the, and you know, she was talking about how she processes work differently as a writer than he would process as an artist. Well, I am both an artist and a writer. So I actually do sketch and I draw and I paint and I work with color. And so when I started writing, for me, it was just a way of using words as my tools. And the page was my canvas. And so I think my writing reflects a lot of that artistic bent that I have. And I want to paint pictures with my words. So I think that's probably what you're referring to. And then when the art department at the publishers gets a hold of my books and they read them, I think it gives them all kinds of visual ideas.
Yeah, you can tell an author who's like tears are coming on the paper. You can tell an author who's writing like a reporter because they're just telling a story as it is, and like they're not part of it. You know, you can always tell the different types of writing. which is I love, because and every single type of writing has its different gifts. You know, it's just very, very wonderful. It's writing has writing it to me is an art form because of poetry. You know, one of the things I said to the author last night was, I keep talking about this author last night. His name is Eddie Boudel Tan. I said, are you a poet? And he said, no. And I'm like, did you ever write poetry? He's like, no. And I'm like, but you write like a poet. Like, and he's like, oh, I did write a lot of poetry in junior high and high school. And I said, you were a poet. And then you switched to novel writing, but your poetry is still in there, right? Mm-hmm. You just stopped writing as a poet. And he was like, you know, that was just one of the things. But yeah, we had the most interesting conversation. But I feel like it is a different art, just like writing a song, right? Everything, they're all different art forms. It's very interesting. So, and sometimes a book will have a cadence to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's all everything's different. So very interesting. Okay. So let's get to, I would like to talk about Karen's story. She had a story from this area that is quite historic that nobody knows about, or at least we didn't know about it.
Well, I started a project a few years ago about Santa Cruz, and I was interested in looking at sites that had been erased, or sites of erasure of persons of color who live in Santa Cruz. And let's see. So I think there was a background picture of the Evergreen Cemetery. Do you have that, Annie?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, no, it's the other one. It's the one with the yeah. It's the other one.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yes.
The other one.
No. You're talking about
the one with the cemetery. That's in the cemetery, but with an arch. It's a Chinese arch.
Oh, I don't have that one.
Oh, I thought I'd just give it to you. Okay, so the Evergreen Cemetery, yes, the Evergreen Cemetery in Santa Cruz. This is a photograph that I took of the steps that go up to the Chinese cemetery. And so the Chinese who came to the United States in the 1880s or the 1860s to work on the railroad are some of those people who settled finally in Santa Cruz are buried here. And then next to that, you'll see this other, and you can put up that stone. There's a stone. This is the stone of an African American man. He was an ex-slave. His name was London Nelson, and he came to Santa Cruz in the 1860s. And he came with his master. This is the story, that he came with his master to the gold rush in 1848, in 1849, and maybe he made enough money to buy his freedom. And with that money, he came to settle in Santa Cruz, where the central post office is in Santa Cruz is where his land was. And he planted watermelon and onions there, and he was also a shoe cobbler. He did not live very long, and in 1860 he died of probably tuberculosis, but he gave all of his land and all of his worth to the Santa Cruz city schools. So he is the godfather of Santa Cruz public schools. Oh. And this is a little known story, and there are plaques to his memory, and there's a community center in his name, but I never knew that London Nelson Center was named after this man. So these are the stories that I started to investigate historically in Santa Cruz, and then to write about. And this has been an ongoing project. It's not a book that's out yet. It probably will come out next year.
Amazing. Such an amazing story.
So let's see. There's one other. Maybe you want to show the picture of George Al. There's a Chinese man
Holding the picture.
Yes. So this is George Zhao. He's a longtime resident of Santa Cruz, but he's also an entrepreneur, and he's given away a great deal of the money that he's made from real estate and his projects in Santa Cruz. And he's holding up a picture that was taken by his uncle of one of the Chinatowns, the last Chinatown in Santa Cruz. Now, if you know anything about Santa Cruz, there's let's see, there's Trader Joe's. Right around Trader Joe's is where the last Santa Cruz Chinatown existed. And this is what it looked like. It was near the San Lorenzo River. And in about, let's see, I can't remember quite the date. But in the 1940s or 1950s, there was the San Lorenzo River flooded and destroyed this Chinatown. And so this is also a story of the Chinese community in Santa Cruz that we also know a little about. And I've also written stories, fictional stories based on the history, because we don't know the history. And there are large gaps in our knowledge about these stories.
So amazing.
I don't know if Alka might know this. The Pacific Grove, the incendiary fires of the village burned down.
Alka, your
mute is on.
Yeah, there were 2 times that the Chinese camps were moved deliberately. Fires were set to them. And what happened is that the Chinese always settled near the water in the bay because they were fishermen. Okay. And as the people, the Methodists who actually settled Pacific Grove, as they realized that the land closest to the water were places that they wanted to settle also, there were times when suddenly the Chinese camps would catch fire. Mm-hmm. And then the Chinese would all have to up and move, and they would move further down in the bay. And once again, it was done 2 different times, and those camps are no longer there. But I think it's very important for everyone in the area to know that the Chinese really helped settle that basin, that bay area. And then it was also the Japanese beyond that who were fishermen further down towards Point Lobos, and they were fishing all of that area. But so much of that history has been erased, and I'm so glad that you are writing about it and that you're making up the stories that have not been immortalized in print yet.
Karen, I might be able to find this. It's an obscure little book of short stories by John Steinbeck's son. And up here in the canyon, this is a place where I wanted Alka to come with me sometime. There is a collapsed mine. And the owner of that mine collapsed it because he didn't want to pay the Chinese workers who are mining the coal. And John Steinbeck's son wrote a short story about it. Catastrophic that was for so many families, because Point Lobos was where a lot of them were starting to live to catch the squid. And there's a tiny, tiny little plaque at Whalers Cove that does mention the Chinese American fishermen. And I think there's also one in PG near one of the little shacks near the train tracks where the Chinese had lived. And of course, ironically, now they have the Feast of Lanterns celebrating the Chinese in Pacific Grove.
Yeah. And that, by the way, is very controversial. It's very controversial.
Oh, well, when London Nelson was supported by the abolitionists who lived here in Santa Cruz, but the same abolitionists were very anti-Chinese, and they kept the Chinese from working in this area, and they made them leave.
Didn't you have a photo of a Chinese farmer or fisherman being lynched? You sent it to me.
Oh no, that's another story.
I have it.
You want to see that? Okay.
All right, here we go.
Okay, these are not Chinese men. These are Californios. They're probably of mixed origin, maybe Mexican and Native American, but Californios, and thus, natives to California and born here. This photograph was taken on May 3rd, 1877. It's a photograph of a lynching. And as you know, across the United States, these photographs were prevalent. And this was a cabinet photo, which is, say about this size, right? Yeah, about 5 by 7. And it was resold and sold again as a souvenir to folks in Santa Cruz. These men were accused of murdering a man, and he worked over in the powder works up near Felton. And the people, the community there was so enraged, came down, took these 2 men out of the prison, which is over at the Santa Cruz Mission, put them on a cart, took them to the Water Street Bridge. If you know where the Water Street is, there's a bridge that crosses San Lorenzo, and they were lynched there. If you can think about this, what I wrote about really was the photographing of this event, which if you know anything about photography in the 19th century, it was a very slow process. And you see these people crowded around. They've all got hats on. They're posed, and it would have taken at least an hour or more to set this up, and also many minutes to take the photograph. So they had to be still for those many minutes. So when you think about that, even further, the story of the photograph and this moment, and then the fact that this was a photo that lived into the 1900s, and people my age who were children in Santa Cruz at the time remember seeing these on the walls of the houses of their families. There are local historians who have written about these events. So I'm not the first to encounter them. I'm just another writer thinking about what this all means for living here now.
Wow, that's intense. Very, very intense.
What sort of response have you received, Karen, from your stories that you've written?
Well, the book is not out yet, and so all these stories are collected in one book, and so I don't know. I've sent them out to different places, and I really haven't heard, except that they've been published in smaller journals.
Yeah.
But that readership must be very small still.
Right.
I don't know. I think he's from Santa Cruz too. He came to the little historical society here years ago. I think his name is Lipton.
Leiden. Sandy Leiden.
Yes.
Sandy Leiden, and yes, is one of our local historians, and he's written books about this. And
he had a lot of photographs, so it seemed to be very rare and archival. That I wondered if you were familiar with.
Yes, wonderful.
I'm getting dizzy because I'm just, shaking my head for so long. It's just off. It's just awful. You're right. I didn't realize, thinking about how long it takes to take the photograph, and everyone's so close to them and dressed up so proper. I don't know. It's just.
Yeah.
And there are children. I mean, if you see some,
So
my husband's kind of a hobbyist in terms of photography, historical photographs too. And you see these little children. I mean, such a tender age, and there they are with these corpses hanging from ropes, and just almost entertained by them because that's what their parents are doing.
Right.
Yeah,
So awful. So awful.
But the area has a lot of beautiful things. Let's not leave.
Yeah. I mean, look.
Okay.
Look at that. Yes. Actually, that looks like it's right over here. No. Down the street near Point Lobos.
Yes. Yeah. I took pictures. I Googled like things that you guys had spoken of, and Post Lobos or something was one of them.
That's it. Yeah.
And it was just so beautiful.
Yep, those are the seals. They come up and they nest every year. And sometimes I've been lucky enough to be there and they're up there nesting. It's so much fun to hear them barking and giving birth.
So we have seals here on Long Island too. And it's just so funny because you'll walk, you'll go out to see them and then you're walking back and like one or two of them is swimming back with you. They're just they have such a personality. And you feel like you're in a movie, oh, Free Willy, it's just so because they really do have a personality. But yeah, I love that picture with the seals. These pictures look fake. They're so beautiful. Karen, was there anything else to your story that you wanted to mention?
No, I think I've.
Okay.
I'm looking at my notes here, but yeah. I mean, I can continue to talk about it, but maybe we should move on to other subjects.
Well, let us know. Now, I did want to point out, I was in college with somebody that was in my sorority, and she was from this area. And when she would come, she would always bring me back something from the art, the art of Carmel, the art of Monterey. And it was always like a tray with like crystals that were like spliced in half. And I don't know what it was called, but it was like special to her. And obviously it was from like a gallery here. I didn't realize, but look how beautiful this is. So, and what they do is this street will close for street fairs. Mm-hmm. But like it's always there, that Carmel Arts and Designs that's a wrought iron sign. So that's that's always there. And this is their town at night in the evening, overlooking their town. So tell me about the weather.
The weather. Well, you can see I'm outside. I'm actually a little cold.
Yeah, I see the breeze.
It's in the mid 60s with the breeze. And if I weren't live, I'd run in and get a sweater.
You can go get a sweater. Cool. Oh, wow. That's
PG. But I used to really love exercising when it was warm. And now that we've been living here for so long in this area where generally it's about 60 to 70 degrees, hardly ever gets up to 70. It's usually in the lower 60s. I've actually gotten used to the cold weather. And now when I'm anything above 75, I am too hot.
You're sweating.
Yeah. And I when I see people sitting on the beaches somewhere in Southern California, I think, oh my God, that's so hot. It's already making me hot. Maybe it's menopause. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Menopause.
How about when you go to India? India is really hot.
India can be hot, but I usually try to go in December and January and February where it's really nice. It's very temperate. It's about 70 degrees and it's super nice. But I think one of the things that has happened because it's cooler here is I can actually exercise longer in the outdoors. So I can go for a 5-mile walk. I can go for a 10-mile bike ride and I'm not cold because my body gets warmed up and then it gets used to this 62 degrees that's outside. Now, what that does for me is it allows a lot of time for me to start building stories. And I build a lot of stories in my imagination before I ever write anything down on paper. I never start with a blank page. It's always scenes and stories that I've already developed in my head. And I've already revised them in my head several times. And I'm just going blah, 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 blah. And then finally, when I get down to my laptop and my office, then it might be a couple of months before I actually put all of those thoughts that were in my head down on a piece of paper.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the weather, and the weather here is actually conducive, I think, to spending more time outdoors and where it's really comfortable and you can actually imagine a lot of your stories.
I think that's how Pat Conroy wrote some of his books.
Did he really?
Some of them, yeah. And he could write. He hand wrote them, but he could handwrite them all at once and not make one mistake. Like he didn't. Yeah, and because he would do that like that. He would have the whole story in his head and be able to just write it, boom, and be done with it. Yeah. Wow, Alka, that's not a lot of people are You know,
Well,
that's very,
I'm glad to know that, because I like Pat Conroy's work, especially The Prince of Tides. I really love that.
yeah, that's very, very good one. I love him too. I wanted, so over in India, I used to work for Microsoft at Microsoft Office.
So you work with a lot of Indians.
Some of them sometimes. And well, one of the gentlemen came over to our office to work in the office, and his name was Aaron, and he was the nicest guy, and he had never seen the beach. Let me tell you something. My husband and I were like, cool, come over for dinner. You make us an Indian dinner, we'll take you to the beach. and he, you know, he was married and he had a wife, so we were able to video him going on, like, and he ran to the water like so fast. It was the cutest thing. But oh my gosh, I said to him, I never imagined like living in India and not being at the water. But he's like, oh no, I was in the middle.
Yeah.
But like, you know, we always assume how a place is, because of how it is on TV or in books or whatnot. And that's why I think conversations like this are very important, because we learn more about one another. We learn more about one another's culture. There's where people live, you know, like, so it's, you know, it's very important. And reading is very important, because we learn about one another's culture and, again, where people live. And it's things like this that bring us to a better understanding of one another. So I really appreciate, you know, you taking the time and coming here to join us. So you have no idea how much it means to me. You know, World of the Right Review, we're all about, you know, stamp your passport. So like everybody's like just stamp their passport in a bunch of different places. So it's very, very exciting.
Yay.
And I have a whole bunch of people that want to say hello. So I just want to let them say hello to you guys. Carla's here.
Hi, Carla.
Hello there.
Hi, Patricia.
My sister.
Hi, Colleen.
It's her birthday today. Friday the 12th.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Colleen.
Carla Suto. And Claire Fullerton. She's from California too.
Hi,
Claire. Malibu.
Oh, lucky you.
I don't know where that is. In
Southern California.
Okay. Janet Oakley's here.
Hi, Janet.
Rena's here.
Hi, Rena.
But she lives near me. Janet says, great. I know Chinese miners were murdered on the Snake River back in the 19th century. Yeah, she's a history buff like there's no other.
Oh,
Rena says, this is so awesome to hear all of these stories.
Yay.
And that was so sad to watch. It was, that one picture.
Yeah.
yes.
You know, so everyone was so excited. Oh, and Vicki Hardman's here. I have to let her say hello to you guys.
Hi, Vicki.
Hi, Vicki. It's okay. Now, if somebody was going to learn one thing from the Central Coast of California, what would you want them to know? Like, what do you think would bring them to visit you? Just pretend it's like a commercial.
I would say just the beauty of nature. The planet is in such turmoil, and to see how the planet and the beauty of nature can just be so thrilling, breathtaking, never to be taken for granted.
Oh, I love that. Wonderful.
And also, I think in this area, there are so many people who are conserving. They are trying to preserve our bay and cleaning up the bay constantly. The Monterey Aquarium and the Packard Foundation has been very instrumental in cleaning up the bay. So it's sparkling. It's just sparkling clean. You can see deep down in the water. You know, and then there's a lot of people who are very involved, our neighbors and a lot of citizens around here, very involved in making sure that the birds that we have lost over the last 50 years or so, that we are preserving their environment so they're coming back and they're having babies and they're growing in number. And that's all very important. I think that being in this area gives you a lot of hope. And I think Diana's absolutely right. Just being in the beautiful environment, but also knowing how much people are doing to preserve preserve this environment is giving you a lot of hope in this area.
That's wonderful. I love that. And Karen?
Well, I would say come and visit our university. The UC Santa Cruz is a beautiful campus. It's a very different looking campus. It isn't the flat kind of concrete stately institution. We have, we have bridges over canyons, and the deer are out. And now that during the pandemic, the deer came out in full force. They're deer, turkey, coyote.
Yeah, they're all over.
Yeah.
All over now. So walking the campus without students has been really interesting. They've been by the animals.
And this reminds me of one other thing, Annie, if I can say this.
Of course.
But like Karen and Diana, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So Karen and Diana and I and so many people in this area, we are, this is a place that is filled with people who have degrees and a lot of education and a lot of travel around the world. So this is an area where you can find so many people who are knowledgeable about many different things. And I think that is what also makes it fascinating. So, anytime we get together with any of our neighbors, there's just so much that people have to share about knowledge about this area or about life or about things that they have seen and heard. The other thing I wanted to say was all three of us are women, and we are writing in some way about history, some way about historical events. I think that this is so important because we are lending a female perspective to things that might have already been written about by men. Maybe they haven't been, but we're lending a female eye, a female gaze on a lot of things that have happened in history that I think come from a place of empathy and come from a place of justice, because I think women know what it's like to have been the second person in a relationship, to have been the lesser role, the lesser considered, the lesser respected role. So I think that when we write about history, we bring in that female perspective. We also bring in the perspective of women who have been really central to history, the women who have not been written about, the women who never were written about because men were writing history over all of those decades, right? And I think historical fiction gives us license to reinvent those women, to recreate those women who did live in those times. And I know that's something I've really tried to do in my books, and I'm sure that this is something that Karen and Diana are doing as well.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe Diana could talk about maybe a meditative or spiritual aspect, because I know that's also been your work. Can you talk about that?
Well, like the title of my novel, Things Unsaid, was really taken from the idea in Buddhism, and also what Alka was saying about the changes that occur within your mind and maybe aren't visible, the things you don't say. So Buddhism, the karma, and Catholic guilt are intertwined in the story to make the turmoil or the dilemma that the main character faces. She has to decide what kind of reflection, peace of mind, hopefully not at the expense of others, but she has to choose between the family she was born into and the family she made for herself, which is a choice that's impossible to make. And so meditation tries to get you to the point where you have to say, I'm in the present moment, I'm doing the best I can, I'm not going to judge this, and I'm going to move on. And so there's a lot of people here. Carmel, Monterey, Tassajara Zen Center is just over the hills. This area, ever since the 50s, the Beat generation poets, the Esalen, the whole vibration of the county and Santa Cruz is really a Buddhist and secondarily a Hindu amalgamation of values. It's just thrilling to be here.
But it's also diverse.
Very diverse.
We have 3 women and all different. You're all from different cultures.
Yes. And as Alka said, we do not want to be, in my words now, the handbag to some man's story.
Right.
I like that.
I had to say that. Alka reminded me of that. You know, our voices have always been soft-spoken or things unsaid. We don't even have the courage or feel the safety to say what needs to be said. And now we're doing it.
Right. Very good. So, it sounds like such a wonderful area. And Diana keeps inviting me to visit. So
Yes.
I might have to do it. I might have to. And I'm starting to write. So maybe I will.
And the four of us can go up the hill. This canyon is spectacular. It's actually part of the park district. And speaking of sentient beings, and we all love nature so much, the other day there was this big snake in our yard, about 3 feet. And we looked it up in our snake book and it's safe. We spent hours trying to save that snake. It got entangled in some netting we had. And then I took a video for our 2 little granddaughters, and some friends from another part of the country said, after I sent it to them, "Why would you go to all that trouble for a snake?" And I said, "Why wouldn't you go to the trouble to save that poor snake?"
In shamanism, a snake is very, very revered.
Yeah,
so
and this is a
good.
very good snake. It's a terrestrial garden snake. They're 3 feet long, but they eat little insects, and they need to be there. You don't need to hurt them.
Yeah, it's just like spiders. They're just getting rid of other little insects in our home, and it's okay to just leave them be.
Leave them be. Exactly. I agree. Wow.
We'll find some bats. We have bats, so we hope the bats will leave some of the spiders with the eyelashes and the eyelids. I don't care to look at those too much.
I get the impression it's very hilly there.
It's got the hills, but you have the ocean and then you have the hills behind. And for feng shui or Chinese geomancy of what's the most perfect good fortune place to live, that's it.
Is that why you moved there?
Well, we did do feng shui. We always do feng shui.
I know. It does sound like something you would do. That's so cool.
I do that. Yes.
Do you really, Diana, do you not buy a home unless you've done feng shui?
That's right.
Wow. Okay. And then are you always setting up your wealth corner, your relationship corner? Do you do that?
I do it in the more the classic way. There are books about doing your good fortune, your relationship corners, but the classic way is you have something red near your front door.
Yeah.
Your front door is positioned right. You could have a copy of your beautiful book, Henna Artist, just anything red right there near the front door. And then you have some like Tibetan flags or flags that are in the breeze. We've got flags all over the place here.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
wow.
The feng shui is very simple. I mean, you don't have to have somebody come out with this special little compass and bring it out to you.
So Tibetan flags are supposed to blow in the breeze?
Yes, because that's the bad karma is blowing away with the flag.
Oh.
Now, if you have them inside, that's fine, just because they're very beautiful. But you should have one that's flapping around in the breeze.
Okay. I'm going to move one outside. I have them in my library. That's so cool. Wow. You learn something every time you talk to somebody different.
Yeah.
Well, somebody new.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And I hope that we get to speak again one day. And thank you for letting us visit Central California. It has been such a wonderful trip. And I know a lot of people are now going to be Googling lots of things, just like I have. And,
yes.
And now I need to Google more. And
yes.
And your book, everybody's books are going to be over at the World of the Right Review bookshop at the Stamp Your Passport aisle. And I'm sure do you have special indie shops that you like people to get your books at?
Well, of course, I like to promote our little River House books. Okay. That's here in Carmel. And of course, Alka and I both know, maybe Alka wants to mention the bookshop in Pacific Grove, which is a wonderful one.
Right. It's called the PG Bookstore.
Oh, wow. That's cool. I like that.
Bookworks. Bookworks. Sorry, Bookworks.
Bookworks. Okay.
And then,
how about you, Karen?
In Santa Cruz, it's Bookshop Santa Cruz.
Oh, yes.
Bookshop
And I think, Alka, did you already speak there? Or are you?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was really fun. And I think a couple of weeks ago I was at River House just signing books, and it was a great day. It was so warm. It was unusual for Carmel, and so a lot of people. We were all outside. It was really nice.
Oh,
It must be so nice.
I didn't know that. Oh, I would have been there for you.
Yeah.
Oh, it must be so nice to see people in person.
Yeah.
I can't wait next week. I volunteered at Dog Rescue, and they're doing a fundraiser next week. So I'm going to get to see people in person. I'm like, what, in person? And it's not for a doctor appointment or something like that. It's going to be great because it's been a while, you know.
Yeah.
So I just want to show that today we have Alka Joshi has offered to give away a copy of The Henna Artist, and I will be putting up these graphics after the show, so you will have, you'll know how to reach her on social media. And Diane is giving away a copy of Things Unsaid, and again, I will be putting this up. And Karen is going to be giving away a copy of Sansei and
Sansei.
Sansei. You know what it is? I'm going to say, Karen, look, I really know how to say it, but I feel like, I don't want to say God, because that's not true. I've been, the juju is bad, because I know how to say it, but like, it's not, somebody's not letting me say it right now, because I know how to say it. I am so sorry.
Mr. Miyagi, Sensei. Yeah.
Sensei. Do you know how many times, like, I interviewed Nonfon Kwame, who wrote The Mountain Sing, and she won the Annie Award. Like, I know her really well now, but I was her first interviewer when she came to her first interview in America. And I listened to the way I had her make a recording of how to say her name. I listened to it like 100 times. And when she came on, I still said it wrong. It was like, you got to be kidding me. So I don't know. And I'm good at stuff like that. But when it's live, I apologize. I shouldn't be interviewing. Anyway, well, thank you so much, ladies. It's been such a pleasure to meet you and to see you again, Diana. I hope to see you again. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks, everybody.
For joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stamp your passport, everybody. Bye-bye.